Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on ChatGPT. So good to have you all with us today. I would love for you to drop into the chat your name, your market, the brand that you're with. And Danielle, why don't you kick us off? Your name, your market, and your brand.
Sure. I'm Danielle Nazinitsky. I'm based in New York City, Manhattan, and Brooklyn, and my brand is Decode Real Estate.
Amazing. Jose from Chaz Realty. Elation, Viviana, so good to see you. Lauren from Kush. Love it. Heather was our first Own It webinar a few weeks ago, so love to see you hopping on for this one. Brad, I have heard great things about you from Georgia, Anna Belomo. So good. Ethan, a fellow New Yorker, hopping on to support his fellow New Yorker. Very cool, very cool. We're just going to give it a couple minutes, folks, for everyone to hop in, and then we will get going. I know this is a really exciting topic for everyone. And Danielle is, honestly, I've been doing real estate marketing for agents for 15 years, and I got to say, Danielle's like one of the most sophisticated agents like I've ever encountered when it comes to how she thinks about this stuff. So really excited to have her share her knowledge with everyone today. Uh, Gail from Synergize, Carla, good to see you from Sunrisen, Nick from Real Estate Experts. Hi, Darren. Hi, Tony. Uh, Hi, Victoria. We're just going to give it a couple more minutes and then we're going to get going. Gary from Portfolio, Karen from Symmetry. Hi, James, Coastal Abode, the best food in America, the Panhandle of Florida, Danielle, if you didn't know that. I know some people say it's New York, but I'm going to counter that. Bree Hudson, Peak Point Real Estate. Bailey from Room. So good to see you all. Margot from City Quest. Thank you all for hopping on with us today. We're really excited to talk a little bit about ChatGPT and how it has been revolutionizing Danielle's business. Hi, Kristen and Nate from Three. Good to see y'all. Charleston, South Carolina. Lindsay, Ingrid. Awesome. I think we got a good group here. Awesome. Okay, Danielle, before we kick it off, just want to lay the groundwork for everyone. So you are a top 200 agent in New York City, which probably I would say many people would claim to be like the most difficult, most sophisticated market in America. So that's absolutely no small feat. You have an average price point of 1.6 million and you have 140 Google reviews. Before we get into it, anything else you want to share about yourself, about your bio, how long you've been in real estate, the market that you focus on?
I've been in real estate for 11 years, and I do, yeah, Manhattan and Brooklyn, I focus on. So,
Awesome. So one of the things we talked about in the prep call that was really interesting to me is just the importance for you of owning your online presence. That has always been top of mind for you since you got into real estate. Can you talk a little bit about like when you were at traditional brokerage, the hurdles that you saw around that and some of the things that you've been able to shift towards and you found beneficial with owning Decode?
yeah, so yeah, over my career, I've always like Google searched my name, kind of like in a not narcissistic way, but like what do people see about me when they Google search? So I've been like very much my focus ever since I started real estate because people can define if they want to work with you and make that decision without even knowing who I am or anything. And so I've always like wanted to have my own website. So I've always had my own separate website. My brokerage firms would always give me like a page on the website. And then as I've gotten more sophisticated over time, they have these things that you can attach to certain web pages to track for advertising and stuff like that. And one of the limiting things as I've gotten more sophisticated is that the brokerage firms that I was with, they wouldn't really let me own my own page on their website. So even if people were looking at my page, I would lose them. Like they
Yeah.
stay with that company. And so, so I've always had my own website and really built out a blog. I've really, for 11 years, I've been focusing on that. And really like, what does someone experience? The photos that come up when someone Google searches me, like, how does that look and feel so that there's like a high intent to like want to contact me. So that's
Uh,
from the beginning.
So somebody goes in, they search your name. Historically, it's something that you have found is one of the first results was always your traditional brokerage firm. There's a world where someone might just start clicking around, ending up like submitting on another agent. So there was always kind of that lingering question in your mind about, am I getting every lead for every single person that's coming to learn about me? And then there's also the idea of retargeting, where you wanted to be able to cookie people that visited your site. And so with your own brand, always owning your own website as well, you've made it so if people look you up, they now, when they browse the web, if they're on the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, they can now see Decode and follow them around. And you use DCB for that currently, or what you're
Yeah,
retargeting?
I've been using the digital campaign builder and still trying to. I was just on a call with Reddit. I've been like I don't know if I'll start doing Reddit ads, but yeah. So the digital campaign builder I've been using recently. So
Talking about kind of going all in on Decode as a brand, you said it's really helped you understand who your real estate clients are. Can you speak a little bit more to that?
yeah, so like my unique value proposition, it's like how do you separate yourself from 14,000 other real estate agents and then possibly, 8,000 teams or, there's a lot of competition in New York. And so when I first started talking to Side, we were just talking about who my main customers are. And I work with a lot of entrepreneurs. And that was through this whole naming system. I have defined that more and more and more. And so then it's like, okay, if I'm a tech buyer or seller or an entrepreneur or creative type, when they see me online, I've been able to kind of hone in on that over the past like 9 to 12 months, like to make it even more compelling for someone to pick me. Um,
I I, th I think people get really nervous at this idea of somebody said it side by side, niching down. It's not that the suited up Wall Street guy will not work with you, right? Like that person, if they like you and your personality, they're always still going to work with you. It's just when that person comes to your website that is the tech buyer, is the entrepreneur, is the creative, they immediately are like, I found my person that
That's what
connects with
yeah, it's
me.
like that immediate, because if they're gonna be looking for multiple people and opening up tabs on their web browser, they're gonna look at what they're wearing, and then what
Yeah.
that overall feeling is. And so I've been very mindful of that as I've launched onto this new chapter.
So reviews are, I saw somebody raise your hand. If you have questions, please drop them in the Q&A. So reviews are very central to your business. As I said earlier, you have 140 Google reviews. One, for people that maybe have never invested in Google reviews, can you explain the value of that? And then two, can you talk about your process for generating that many Google reviews?
Yeah, so when I was thinking about how I'm going to ask people to give me Google reviews, when I first started 11 years ago, I don't even think Google had reviews, by the way. So I
Yeah.
was doing like Yelp and people would say, "Oh, do Zillow." But the reality is that Yelp started deleting some of my reviews over time because if they're a certain age, and so I was
Yeah.
like, okay, well, I can't use Yelp like for my main hub of reviews. And then with Zillow, it's like you just never, we don't even have Zillow's not a really big presence in New York either. So it's like I didn't really want them going on Zillow because their whole thing is to sell information to, I don't buy leads, so I don't buy leads from Zillow. I don't do anything with that. So I was like, where do I want that? And so I was very cognizant of that with the Google reviews after I had had a couple experiences with like other companies deleting them. And so Google from my knowledge, is that they let you, they don't delete your reviews. And the majority of them are, it's like they're all, you get pretty good reviews if you're able to manage it. And so the easiest for me in New York to get reviews are like rental reviews. So if I'm representing a landlord and the tenant isn't paying a broker fee, it's easy. That's like the lowest hanging fruit. I've kind of said that before, but those are people that feel like they don't realize all the work that went into renting something, but then they're just happy that they got the apartment. So I've
Yeah.
really focused on, I'll sometimes take rentals, like you don't make a lot of money on them. And so it's really just to get the review, actually.
And
So
and what's like the value? So we're going to talk a little bit about how it has been part of ChatGPT's algorithm for who it services. But prior to that, you were building your Google presence. What was the rationale behind that? Just to make sure you had a great storefront when somebody Googled you?
yeah, so during COVID, they had a program called it was like an expert program where they would just recommend real estate agents, plumbers, whatever. Google My Certified is what it was called. And so I was actually one of the pilot testers in New York to get approved for Google My Certified. And what I found is that the people Googling for real estate agents, there was actually a very high conversion at the time. I don't do it anymore, but there was a very high conversion. And at that time, I might have only had like 20 Google reviews, but it was still more than anyone else. And so I would always ask people, oh, how did you find me? Through the Google My Certified, but they would always say it was because I had the most Google reviews. So like I kind of listened to my clients, and so
Yeah.
then it wasn't like anyone's ever said, oh, I looked at your Zillow reviews or I looked at your Yelp reviews. It was like people actually trust Google reviews. So that's why I
Absolutely.
focused on them.
And for you, something interesting I thought you said, and I've known people to do this when it comes to other review sites, is you tell people to give you a review, even if they don't necessarily transact with you, but if somebody calls you for advice or anything like that, or you show somebody something, that's an opportunity for a review. Can you speak a little bit more to that?
Yeah, yeah. So recently with the whole ChatGPT, if it recommends me for something that like isn't going to turn into a sale, like one person was calling asking for refinance information for their co-op. And so I was able to point them in the direction of like a bank that would actually be able to refinance their co-op. And he was able to get in touch. And so then, he didn't ask what I can do for you, but I was like, if it's possible, could you write me a 5-star Google review? And I would give them a couple like pieces of information to include in it. So I've started doing that a lot more this year. So I don't have I probably 2 or 3 people that I haven't really transacted with. Sometimes I'll even ask real estate agents, like in the very beginning, if I've given them free advice. I ask them to review me as well because I think to get a well-rounded picture of someone on Google, it could be just not just past clients, it's past real estate agents that you've gotten along with as well.
Can you just very tactically explain your process for getting these reviews, like what you do the day of close, your follow-up cadence, if you give them specific keywords that helped and your search results, like just go through those steps for me?
Yeah, yeah. So I do post quite a bit of them on my stories. So, part of the Instagram is I follow a lot of my clients they become friends. So, they've already seen that I really like Google reviews. Like I post on my stories a lot. So sometimes it could go one of 2 ways where someone's like, can I please write you a Google review? Because they've already like seen that that's something that I really like, it's I'm very passionate about. And then the other way is that I kind of tee it up where they're like, before closing in New York, everything bad can happen, like leaks in apartments, the electric goes out, like, there's just crazy things that happen. The buyer becomes psycho, the seller becomes psycho, whatever's on the opposite side. And so like the last couple days are the most emotional, I would say, for someone. And that's when it's like they're very grateful. That's when you find them like the most grateful. So it's like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna ask you for a Google review when you're all moved in, And so I'll end up sending them like the link to the Google review after, like, congratulations. I don't really send it immediately after closing it. There's a little bit of a lag, but it's like, you check in on them because you're genuinely wanting to see pictures of, what does it look like, or if they're doing renovation, and then it's like, hey, like, can you give me a Google review? And I always have them like the neighborhood that they bought in, like what neighborhood they bought in, what building possibly, what type of apartment, was it a co-op, was it a condo, and so I have them add in, even if they were looking at townhouses, but they ended up buying a condo. I'm always like, put that in, put everything in that you can possibly look. And then I always offer, if you want, I can draft something for you that you can tailor. And a lot, I would say it's like 50-50, 50% of people take what I send them and tailor it, but people do like to write their own. So,
We have a
oh,
couple mechanical questions that I just want to flag. So one in the Q&A is about how are you able to keep your Google profile and reviews when you left your old firm and started your own? I hear that Google flags and takes that down. I will say that your Google profile is your own. It's not your firm's. And so you should be able to easily transition that because your Google profile is about you as a service provider. Anything you want to add to that, Danielle?
yeah, I was able to transition it. I owned it at the other one, and then I've always just owned it. So that was like something that I managed. I would add photos every once in a while. It's like you try to keep that profile as active as possible because you just to go into the algorithm of people searching.
And Diana wants to know, we have our own brokerage website set up, but how do we get clients to leave us Google reviews for the website? So Danielle, that's actually an interesting question. Do you have a Google business page for Decode?
I just have it for myself, and yeah, I don't know. I, I honestly feel like the individual agent is the most important part. We're the salespeople. We make the revenue. So I would say that every person should have their own Google profile. And like, maybe Decode will have its own Google profile, but for me, right now, it's just me. So,
Yeah.
like maybe if it gets to like five agents or something down the road, like,
I,
but for me, I feel like owning your own name is much more important and in the long run. But then if you do want your own brokerage name, then I would work with the agents at that company and really work
I,
to like they could post twice or something, right? It's like I
yeah,
worked with so and so at such and such firm, but
yeah. I, I would say for right now, for people that are kind of on there maybe themselves or a few agents, really it's just about getting your own individual profile set up and having reviews put on that. But as you scale up, if you're like a real estate expert, you or a Ches Realty, I think that that makes sense when you're that large and have that many agents to have your own profile, especially because that profile is going to become important for representing the culture of the brokerage, representing the culture of the brand, specifically for recruiting purposes. So it's just kind of about where you are on your growth journey. It will be a lot easier to scale though your own uh, individual page. And yes, you can go to Google and set up your own individual business profile. Diana, I can reply to you after that and share how. Uh, okay, quickly. If somebody wanted to scale up their Google reviews right now, Danielle, say they're like sub 20, sub 10, how would they hit a 50 mark in the next like couple weeks?
I would just go on your past transactions, and it's about the holidays are coming up. So you kind of have to just ask, and people will generally write you the reviews. I do have a couple clients that are private, but it's just, most of the people they want, you could check in with them. You could even do the pop buys. I sometimes like, you bring them something. So yeah, but I would go through your past transactions. The rental ones are generally the most easy. And then past clients, I would just, there's an
Or
app,
again, yeah, go ahead, Danielle.
there's like an app called Reach. Someone had mentioned it at a conference a few years ago, but you can add all of your past clients on text. And so like it just mass texts, but it looks like a personal text. So like you could just add 100 people who you've done transactions with, and you add them to your um, Reach, like this app, and then you could just send the same thing to everyone. And like you can make it custom where it's just, hey, I was just doing an audit of the past 9 months, and I realized that um, like, oh, I know I asked you a lot of times, but most people like they'll do it,
And the
Um,
reason we're belaboring the reviews for everyone, the app is called Reach, Gil. The reason we're belaboring the reviews is because ChatGPT actually uses these reviews to surface people. So when somebody goes into ChatGPT and says, "Give me the best agent in Dumbo," they have scraped Google reviews, and that's ultimately how they are showing Danielle as the person that shows up. So I want to make the last 10 minutes all about ChatGPT, all about content, and just like leveraging ChatGPT in general as part of your business. So another part of why you show up so consistently in ChatGPT is you have very thoughtful content that's like intent-driven content on your blog. Can you talk about how you arrive at the topics that you ultimately blog about?
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of like you can't really do everything at once. I kind of mentioned this before too, where I started like in New York City, we have a bunch of new condo buildings. So like 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, I had someone doing blog posts of all the new developments in Manhattan and Brooklyn. And so those lived on my old website. It's daniellesellsnyc.com. And so that lived there. And then so I've had luxury presence transition all of those same blog posts over to my new website. And then every time I get a new listing, you kind of have to do it on a very granular basis. But if it's in the Upper East Side, I'll ask ChatGPT and I say, what do you know about me as an expert in the Upper East Side? And so then it will answer it. And then it's like, are there any blind spots that I should be considering? And it will like mention it. And it's like, can you take that? And then the third question would be like, can you take that into consideration when coming up with 30 different blog posts that would establish me with topics as an expert of Upper East Side,
This
right?
is,
And so
yeah,
then it spews
no,
out 30 different topics, and some of them are like, very cheesy, and so you pick about 20 of them, and then on Upwork, you could write them all yourself through ChatGPT. And but I just don't have the time. So I
yeah.
just found someone on what's Upwork. And so I just send her a bunch of these blog posts, and I'm sure she's using something like ChatGPT, but then she'll draft it, find a relevant photo of the Upper East Side. Most recently we did like Williamsburg because I had a listing
So,
there.
so Danielle, everyone's asking about the
Yeah.
prompts. So the prompt is,
Oh, like what do you know
it,
about me? Like, so what do you know about Danielle Nazinitsky as her expertise in Upper East Side? Like just asking
or
it,
what do you
what
know
does it
about
know?
Danielle Nazinitsky as a real estate agent? I think for
Yeah,
everyone on this call, you start there and you
yeah.
can drill down, like Danielle's can drill down because she started at the top, but it's what do you know about Danielle Nazinitsky as a real estate agent? It will spit out everything that it knows about her from scraping the web. And then she asks it, which this is the one you all really want to lock into. What are my blind spots as it relates to being a real estate agent? And it will then tell her all of her blind spots. Like, what's an example of a blind spot, Danielle?
Uh, well, like, oh, have you thought about, God, like maybe it's like even, oh, like you drive a lot, oh, have you thought about writing a blog post of all the parking garages in a specific neighborhood? I don't know, like
Yeah.
that type of blind. So then it will just come up with blind spots of like what you're missing, what you haven't, like what other real estate agents might be coming up on ChatGPT for. So,
And then
and yeah.
yeah. And then she will ask it, give me 15 to 30 blogs using all these blind spots that I can write about. So that then helps her rank for those specific topics. Because the point of asking about a blind spot is basically asking the internet, what does the internet not see about you that I want to be seen about myself?
Yeah, and this is like, it's all organic search. So it's someone like they're not, it's not a paid ad on the top. It's like it's going to take all of your content from your website. ChatGPT will. And so like one of the things we talked about too on our like prep is that like a couple weeks after I have the blog posts written and posted and published, I'll then go back to ChatGPT and then you ask it to like recrawl your blog to say like, okay, what do you now know about the Upper East, like me as an expert in whatever the neighborhood is. And so it's able to then kind of update its memory. Like it has a memory. So you want it to constantly be updating the memory. And my mom isn't on this call, I don't think, but she's like, why would you share all this? And it's like, because by the time this ends up, there's going to be something else, So, I would just focus on where do you want to be an expert? Like what, if you're really good at specific new developments, like that DR Horton or whatever, across the country, there's all these different developers. It's like, well, then you should have blog posts about educating buyers about, pitfalls of buying new development, or like, the value of bringing someone before you actually go tour it or whatever. So it's like, you have to have that on your website so that when someone's Google searching it, they're not already on your website looking for your expertise. They're like
I
on, so
Yeah.
I,
Everyone is asking, like, are you using luxury presence to post all these blogs?
no, I don't use luxury presence because I don't use luxury I mean,
For
my website is hosted on luxury presence. But they're going to charge way too. I think you can do it for much less,
No, no, no,
cost.
not no, 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 not
Oh,
using them, paying them is like everyone's asking, where are you posting all the
I'm
blogs?
hosted.
Like, are
Well,
you
so I have, yeah. So my Decode NYC is hosted on luxury presence, but then my Danielle Sells NYC is actually, it is luxury presence too. It used to be on Squarespace. I think it's,
so
if you don't have a
so for
luxury presence, oh, I
yeah,
like,
so
you
for
can do it on
everyone,
Squarespace. So
but everyone
Squarespace is,
here they mostly do, because they're all,
okay.
a lot of them are side partners. For everyone, the luxury presence blog feature is very powerful. I just dropped in Danielle's Decode blog. You can look there at what she's posting, how she's posting, but yes, where she hosts her blog is her luxury presence site. Dave Fratello wants to know, Dave is, by the way, like an OG blogger. He ran one of, or he runs one of the most like well-known blogs in the SoCal area, Manhattan Beach Confidential. He says, how do you evaluate the value of blog posts, like versus pages, articles? So when
um,
like,
Yeah, I mean, I have neighbor, they're all kind of the way luxury presence worked it on my specific website is that it's all kind of like a blog in a way, where like all the neighborhoods are set up almost like a blog, and all of the new developments are set up as a blog. So I think it's just the more content you have, and then the more you ask ChatGPT to like look at your content, and like my blog posts, they look like they're not, some of them are mine. Some of the ones I've like actually written, like a newsletter, I'll put the newsletter on there. I'll put like, if I'm doing an event, I'll put that on there. But like the majority of them, it's not like a super sophisticated written article. It's not, because that's not really the purpose. It's really like the ideas for someone on a large language model like ChatGPT to like find that it's pulling from, and then they're just going to open up your website and then look from there. But the past couple days I got someone on Greenpoint, a neighborhood in Brooklyn. So like I got a potential lead for someone looking at my blog post of Greenpoint, Brooklyn neighborhood. You just never really know where the leads are coming from. And honestly, I just don't have the time to even follow up with them, but I'm going to bring on someone to join. But it's like that, I would just give all the leads because you just don't really know what part of their, for like anyone
you,
that's clicking
you
on different neighborhoods, like you don't know what part of their
yeah.
journey they're on. So
But it goes back to being really specific. So Danielle's not writing content for New York City. She's writing content specific to Greenpoint, Brooklyn, because the narrow content, one, it helps her come up in ChatGPT when someone goes and asks that very specific question. It also helps her show up in Google search. We only have a couple more minutes, Danielle. Like for you, AI is basically the new front door to the internet in so many ways. Google was the front door, and now many people are searching via AI. What are the steps you would tell someone for how they could start ranking on ChatGPT today
yeah, I mean, I think
or
owning
showing
your
up?
own, yeah, having your own website or having like a page, building out the content that you're passionate about, because it's not like I sell, you have to pick what you're really wanting to focus on. And the niche part of real estate is that's what people are going to be contacting you for. And then the ChatGPT users, it only represents like 5% of all the search, from what I've read. And so it's like, but those people looking trust it a lot, that they're not like asking their friends for like a second opinion. They're like, they want to, if they're looking to buy and they're Googling for like a specific neighborhood, they're very likely to hire you.
So the takeaways are own your web presence as much as you can, have a website, own the front door to the internet for when people go looking for you, have search reviews available to you that can be Google. There is a place for Yelp and all this, but I would definitely say Google's going to be the easier to ramp up. Use ChatGPT to acknowledge the blind spots of where you're not showing up online, because that is ultimately going to give you the best insight about the content that you should be putting out there. And then Danielle, any kind of, because we're at time, any kind of final words you want to leave people with?
No, I do tell it, I tell people that find me on ChatGPT to thank it after we talk. I don't know if it has anything to do with anything, but so if you go into ChatGPT and you're like, let's say you ask, what do everyone on this call, oh, what do you know about Danielle Nazinitsky? Whatever it says, like, thank them, I always try to thank, thank you for recommending this to me, because that's like my takeaway. Because you really want it to be like, oh yeah, this was a great recommendation. I don't know if that even works, but it's like, I think it closes that loop of someone calling you for advice and then you giving it and just saying, okay, well, you found me on here. Can you thank it for me? So,
Uh, for everyone joining today, thank you so much. Thank you, Danielle. I'm going to drop the Own It newsletter in the chat. If you have not signed up, please do. We share stories, tactical advice like Danielle's all the time. And just Danielle, you're crushing it. Everyone should follow Danielle on Instagram. If you want to drop, I can drop your Instagram handle in here too, because she is just so much good insight, so much advice. And yeah, really appreciate y'all all hopping on with us today. So I'm gonna Danielle Sells NYC,
NYC, very basic, very basic. So
which is perfect. All right, appreciate y'all all hopping on. Thank you.
thank you so much.
Bye.
This was great. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks.